for our pre-show, we have 4 teams represented by 4 characters represented by our 4 casters today. And for our first matchup, we have Degenerates Reformed, which will be represented by Mac, versus Shadowblade Slash, which will be represented by me. And then that is our race for 6th place that will be determining, most likely in that matchup today, will be determining which team will be advancing to playoffs, as they are both currently tied for 6th place. And then in our other matchup, our show match for today, it is Fever versus No Fear Wolves, both of them in their race for 2nd place against the 1st place CB Rush. Fever being represented by Icarus and No Fear Wolves being represented by Gungeon today. So for our first team, represented by Mac, we will have Degenerates Reformed.
Woo, let's go. I am so excited for Degenerates Reformed, guys. The past couple weeks, much like my Skarner Monk would, they've been absolutely tearing it up through the mid-league, picking up huge wins. I'm talking about a 2-1 versus Bucky's. Hello, a team that took down CB Rush. Come on, how can you not be excited about this new lineup? You got innovative picks in the top lane, both literally, and the player himself, Sovereign, on the inspiration for my character. The Skarner god himself has just been absolutely impaling wins left, right, and center the past couple weeks. Colebox in the mid lane with Mob and May in the bot lane. And to kind of go through these stats, each of the casters kind of chose 6 of these ones on a scale of 1 to 20, or I guess 0 to 20. No one got any zeros though, so only about 1 to 20. If we could go back to the Skarner Monk, that would be great. The lane dominance score is going to be kind of how we evaluate the micro for some of these players. Vision score, how well these guys warden, and how active are they on the vision map kind of thing. Champ pool overall, kind of the spread of their champions, where are they playing? Is it spicy? Is their champ pool kind of their signature style, stuff like that. We got objective control, average game time, gold diff, kind of speaks for itself. So getting into my Skarner Monk, guys, the lane dominance, the vision score, and the champ pool is what I'm kind of worried about with this Degenerates Reform team. A lot of their wins have been picked up with kind of their Sovereign Skarner comp with Mob on Xayah. And yes, they have been tearing through people, not only winning close games, but dominating as well. I think they're really starting to hit their stride, but I really wonder when teams are going to start picking up on the fact that the Nocturne that sometimes pulls up on the ban phase for people going up against Degens really hasn't gotten any wins. And so I'm kind of curious, are Degens going to be able to pick up some wins with without the Skarner locked in, or maybe even without Mob on Xayah? I feel like at some point these guys are going to have to adapt, and especially in a close series versus Shadowblade Slash, they might throw them in a position where, hey, no more Skarner, no more Xayah, beat us with something else. And that's where the question marks are kind of for me. Sovereign has shown to have a good trundle, but again, not the best champion in the meta right now, so I'm a little concerned. Also talking about vision score, gentlemen, it is 30-minute games you guys are playing too. I do not want no single-digit vision scores out there. There's just no excuse for that. Need to see some improvement. If my Skarner Monk, 6-armed Shuriman Monk, who absolutely idolizes the pillars. He even has stun guns on the back for Skarner's E, and then there's a little dagger attached to his tail, because much like Skarner, you know, he needed to have a stinger. So I'm hoping these guys can get some more character points and really rev up for the start of playoffs, but I'm really excited about this squad and where they're at.
Mac, I love it. I'm gonna say, as a Skarner main from season 2, 1200 LP, silver Skarner player that was just running around the Rift, I love it. I think the pick is really strong right now because again, it forces a lot of these comps to kind of change up what their playstyle is. And again, we are seeing a lot more flexibility, like the Tristanas and Lucians appearing in the mid lane. You know what punishes that? Big bad boy Skarner. That's what he is. He's the bad boy of the jungle. I'm excited to see him, and it's actually a strategy. Again, kind of comparing up, it's something that CLG's actually been doing in the LCS right now, where they're running this alley-oop comp with the Galio and the Vi. So again, when you're at the bottom of the standings, I think simplifying your strategy is really key, and I think the Degenerate Reform can definitely pick up some wins because again, we saw last year or in last split, Kiba was 9-0 on Kaisa and he got it game after game after game after game. Maybe, you know, sometimes the stats speak for themselves, but sometimes it's hard to read. So I'm excited for the Skarner comp. I'm excited to see what it does. And I think that they will end up picking this up. I do want them to fix up on that vision score. I agree with you on the vision score in the champ pool. I think they are limited, but you can be limited as long as you're good at the one thing you do. You can make playoffs. So I'm excited for these guys. Icarus?
Absolutely.
Next up.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was going to be Cam next for.
Oh, my bad.
I was
All
waiting
right.
to see who they're facing off against because the Skarner Monk is going to be playing off against Shadowblade Slash, and that's going to be Cam's team. This is my character, but we'll get back to them in just a little bit here.
Yes, so my character is actually going to be called the Blado Bardo, short for Shadowblade Slash, and of course, the Bardos of the Power. Currently, they haven't had the greatest season of them all. They are currently, like we said earlier, tied for 6th place with Degenerates. Very respectable so far. Definitely could be making playoffs depending on how this week and next week play out. Hopefully, neither team going to be taking a whole 3. And so for my stats, I'm going to be starting from the bottom as well, working my way up. So for their average game time, I went for some more classic Dungeons and Dragons numbers here. So usually you get 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, and 15 on your stats. So for the lowest average game time of 8, they currently are sitting at the 2nd most game time in Excellency Mid-League at 31 minutes and 55 seconds average game time, which is very long, as about the average is around 26 minutes. So being about 5 minutes longer than the average of like most league games is quite long. Not necessarily a bad thing, but making them very long could result in more flips and more things that can go very wrong and lead to more losses. So having that as your bottom stat definitely is probably pretty good though, as compared to the other ones. If your worst stat is how long your games are, then that's not that bad. So for your second stat, I'm going to be having gold diff at 10, as they are currently tied with about 20 gold between the 4 teams here, as they are basically tied for it. Is currently tied with Degenerates, Divine Ascension, and Elventus, all at about 1,600 gold per minute. So that's roughly about, I want to say that's like, what, 300 gold? About 350 per player every minute, which is about not that much, as currently the average is around 1,800. So they are sitting about tied with the lowest teams, which is not the greatest. But again, having that as your lowest stat is not going to mean a whole lot when your objectives and your vision score are definitely going to be way more up there. We're going to be skipping up there to your 14 and 15, both objective and vision control. I think Shadowblade Slash has got these down to a beat, as we are on our Shadow, our Blado Bardo, of course. So I think objective and vision score is usually tied with each other, as you do need that vision, you do need those kills and that gold lead to be able to have that crucial objective control to find these wins that they have definitely been able to do pretty consistently. So having both of those stats as your highest, especially for Shadowblade Slash, is definitely going to lead to, I'm hoping, to some good victories and leading to them being in playoffs, either 5th or 6th. Either one would be very good for them.
A ticket to playoffs is like the golden ticket at this point for these teams, and I'm really excited to see how this matchup goes for both of these squads. I think it's going to be really telling if this new Degen's roster is the real deal, or have we just been sleeping on Shadowblade Slash the whole time? Is Bardo gonna use that blade of his and pop off tonight? I think it's gonna be a really close series, especially with how I don't know how consistently snowbally both of these teams are going to be able to play. So I think we're going to get at least one or two really long bangers.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I like what Shadowblade Slash does as a team. I do think they are somewhat reliant on Void Rifter's champion pool, especially that Malzahar that has been so... It feels like every series, Void Rifter gets one Malzahar game, and then they're like, okay, guys, let's ban this out. So Void Rifter gives you a win automatically. We're just going to give them... We can just put one win for Shadowblade Slash with the Malzahar pick, but they really like that pick because they like to play super aggressively with Meteor just kind of running around, and Void Rifter just locking down any sort of mid-jungle 2v2. So I really am excited to see what that mid-jungle 2v2 kind of does, especially with the new changes in 11.13, kind of emphasizing mage play a lot more, kind of enhancing Void Rifter's champion pool.
The Malzahar is a really scary pick that you're mentioning there, Gunshin. It's really funny how many times he's able to get his hands on it. And I think that's why a lot of teams, and that's why this team has really been showing so strong, is because there are a couple of strong champions that they have to be able to get their hands on. And if they get their hands on it, just like CB Rush with their Talia and Kha'Zix, if they're able to get the champions that they're comfortable on, they just show up so massive on them. And a lot of the times people doubt how strong a Malzahar is, but I think you really hit it right on the head there with the amount of lockdown and CC he brings to a team.
He's
Yeah,
just able
definitely.
to... Oh, sorry. I was
Sorry,
going to
you
mention,
go.
he's just able to augment that mid 2v2 so heavily. So, again, I don't want to give any information out to any of the teams. I'm not biased. But Void Rifter on Malzahar, that might be suspect. A little bit sus, kind of imposter-like. So, might deserve a ban. But, Cam, Dungeon Master, you're able to continue. Sorry for the intro.
Yes, of course. So I just wanted to have it move on to our next matchup here, as we do have Fever versus No Fear Wolves, which is going to be our show match today. So to kick it off, Icarus, what do you have today for us about Fever?
Well, I have my specialty here, a Berserker class style champion for the hands of Fever here. His name is going to be none other than Olibear Ziana. In remembrance of our two tricks here on the team here for the side of Fever. Now, that's not to say that they can't play other champions, but if you take a look at the stats, champion pool is going to be the weakest area for the side of Fever. And we kind of saw that happen in last week's matchup versus CB Rush, that you could take away the Zion Tristana in the bottom lane from Evil Zara, and feels like he doesn't have as much viability on that Kai'Sa just because of the amount of nerfs that Kai'Sa has received. And taking away those two powerhouses that are still strong for him does leave him a little bit on the weaker foot. Same thing can be looked at when it comes to the jungle champion pool here. We joked about it a little bit last week, but there's a very season 10-esque champion pool coming in from Zongi, and whenever that Volibear is up and available for him, he oftentimes will index straight into that champion, likes to go for the early aggressive trades on it in the jungle. But if that's not available, he'll oftentimes go back towards the Olaf, the other half of this Olibear name, or the Trundle as well, are typically the other two champions he does rely on. Now, that is really just going to be the number one weakness here for the side of Fever. However, their strongest aspect is their ability to fight. Look at that. I gave them a 19 on lane dominance, and they believe that there's a weird mix here for Fever. They have both early game and late game strategies, and the biggest reason that I call Fever Berserker is because the longer the game goes, the more rage that they're able to build up, the stronger they're going to be, especially around their mid lane and bottom lane carries in TL Providence and Evil Zara. These two are phenomenal laners that, while they might not get a whole lot of kills or damage done in lane for themselves, they're able to farm up. They play these scaling picks that love to play these mid to late game team fights out, like the Orianna Victor, like the Xayah Tristana. And even though they may not be super aggressive in lane, Zongi and Stubby on the other half of the map are ultra aggressive. You're still going to be getting those fights. You're still going to be getting those early game trades coming in here, with constantly seeing Stubby get 1v1s in the top lane, the solo bolos, and always seeing a topside scuttle crab fight coming in from the hands of Zongi. He likes to go for those early game trades with these early bruisers. And so I give them a huge amount of props with their ability to take fights early on, because even if they don't win the early game fight, you have to do enough damage to this Berserker that once he enters rage mode, you're going to be able to still take him down. To kind of run through the rest of the stats here, though, gold diff at 18, a lot of that is going to be coming off the back again of Evil Zara, who has one of the highest goal differences and CS differentials in the entire league here for himself. He is constantly putting up the numbers, constantly out farming his opponent. I think he's at a 9.6 CS per minute average across the entirety of the league. So this man knows how to CS. He's going to be getting all that gold. A lot of that will transition into the objective control and the vision score once we get into the mid game. I would like to see the solo laners do a little bit better warding. You have a lot of these carries that are under 30 wards or 30 vision score an average game, whereas you do get a lot of wards coming out from the jungle and support though. So they're not the weakest team, but if they want to start and bump up those numbers just a little bit, they need to improve with the solo laners, with the carries, just putting a few more wards down. And finally, the last stat, average game time. They're fairly middle of the pack on that one. I give them a 16 because they are a little bit better than most teams, but not by considerable margin like CB Rush is.
Yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting point, Icarus. I mean, especially with the game time, I feel like in seasons past, I mean, this is the first mid-league season without Glaive. And I don't think there's a team here that's as dominant as they were during their stretch, especially with Kiba. And so we have a much closer league, I think, right now. We're even talking about before going live that, hey, there's no like South Dakota Coyotes anymore or one Brain Boys at like the way bottom that's just like clear, not even considered week to week, as it was kind of like having to buy. You know, but now we've got a really exciting league, and I think especially at the top of the bracket, when you have like last week CB Rush only winning by 2-1, we've got an interesting playoffs coming up. I think really good points overall on Ollie Bear himself.
I gotta say it, Chris. I feel like you rated them really highly because my ratings.
I was doing it based off of Heavy League, and they had all really high stats. I was going to do just the regular D&D numbers, but that's on me. You got to give props though. They are second place so far.
No, 100%. I think Fever plays a really interesting style. I like the aggression. I do think that the champion pool is limited, especially with what we saw last week versus CB Rush, where it feels like the jungle pool has just not evolved to the current meta with how fast junglers are coming out, like the Xin Zhao being so prominent, being augmented like picks by Karma. It feels like it's not a Fever style composition where they like to play kind of the scaling mid lane mage with like a hyper scaling AD carry. And I feel like that comp can kind of come back with the recent changes in 11.13. So I'm excited to see how they adjust. But yeah, I think compared to my ratings, it feels like I almost flamed No Fear Wolves. So guys.
It's about to. Oh, wait. We get the reveal now, do we?
Oh boy.
Are we
Here we
doing?
go.
Are we doing the holy pack? All right.
The holy pack.
First
what a
pull up.
drawing.
Yes.
Everybody pray to the holy pack. The prayage to everybody in the holy pack. To my guy, Epic Fail Guy. This is something that we're gonna see the actual drawing. Oh god. That was the artist rendition that I had helped by my friend Explosive Pebble, and then I had my interpretation of what I saw. And so I like calling them the holy pack because again, everyone was flaming me for being a No Fear Wolves bias, but here we are once again, and they're competing for second seed versus Fever. Again, they're a strong team. I did rate them lowly in terms of just overall game stats because, again, lane dominance-wise, I don't think they have the strongest laners. They do work. They can make things work, but it's their team plays where I really think that they come together as a team, and that's why I call them the holy pack. And if we go back to that previous image, let's get off this image for now. Oh god, I've been replaced by the holy pack. But if we go back to the regular image, you can see they have that character in it. And I didn't even emphasize who that is. It could be Epic Fail Guy, but it's kind of a team effort.
Fail Guy.
Yeah, Gunjin Fail Guy, because this split, I feel like they've really come together as a team to really emphasize that anybody on this roster can carry. There have been kind of pop-off games from Skiz in the top lane. There have been pop-off games from Cute Raichu as well in the mid lane, and they've kind of become this encapsulated team that really can play through their team style and really play together. And that's why I rated their vision score. I think they have a really high vision score. They set up for objectives really well. So vision score and objective control are rated as well. Average game time, they're middle of the pack. Gold differential, they don't really beat you in gold. And champ pool it's incredibly diverse because of the flexibility. A lot of their players have played a lot of different roles. We have had swaps. Actually, their entire top side has swapped between every single role between each other. So they can play a lot of champions, but their champ pool is a little bit outdated. But I think that with the mid lane mages coming back, it can be a little bit of a boon to this team. But I'm excited to see them because, again, they play as a team. They can really make things work and they can really get it happening. So I'm excited to see how they match up versus Fever, who's that early game aggression. It's going to be the kind of style of early game aggression versus hyper scaling holy pack. That's why I kind of have them as this name. They build out these holy team comps, which I consider are comps like the Karma, the Jinx, the Xin Zhao, where it's like, if everything goes right, we win the game. But a lot of times the early game laning is really what hampers that. So I'm excited to see if they can make prayers up to the holy light. They can call on their paladin wisdom and really get this show on the road.
I mean, that's a really interesting way of putting it, to say that your team's going to lose to Fever because they don't know how to fight in the laning phase here, Dungeon. It really comes down to like a lot of just how do you prefer to play the team? How do you prefer to play the fight? We were reading the mid-league chat earlier today, and I think that Solarian made a really good point there. You got a couple of different styles of compositions of teams here in mid-league. You have some very early aggressive teams that like to play around their jungler, that like to fight a lot, and CB Rush and Bucky Strasser being two of the biggest users of that. And then on the other hand, you get teams that like to scale more, like Shadowblade Slash, like No Fear Wolves. And I do think that Fever lands somewhere in the middle with that one. So it's going to be a little bit of that light versus dark, a little bit of the chaos versus controlled and tempered here when you have the Paladin versus Berserker matchups.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting to see. I'm excited to see how they lane. I think if we're not doing predictions, yes, I will put my predictions out there. I think that it will be a No Fear Wolves 2-1. I believe in the Holy Pack Prayage to everybody. Everyone put your throw your thumbs up in the chat, but I think that they'll pull it through. But it is going to be interesting to see because, again, this is the battle for that second. It is that battle for the bye, and you don't want to get caught up because you have teams like Shadowblade Slash and Degenerates really coming up the standings. So if you go into that third place match, you face one of these teams that's in that upsurge, you can get knocked down in the quarterfinals. And that's what neither of these teams expected going into this mid-league season.
That's a bold prediction, Gunjin. I think I honestly hope that's what really is in the cards for both of these teams. I don't want to. We had 2-0 Tuesdays. We've had 3-0 Wednesdays for quite a bit. I'm hoping Fever learned a little bit from the CB Rush series and can maybe turn things around. In terms of bold sweeping predictions, I might actually have to agree with No Fear Wolves taking this 2-1. I think it's going to be really close and can go either way, but that's kind of where I'm leaning right now.
You know, I want to say that this series is going to be a little bit closer, but I do believe that Fever's going to come out on top with it. I can't argue against some of the stats that I've seen for the carry potential in Evil Zara and TL Providence. These guys really can put up some numbers when it comes to gold diff, when it comes to their ability to play the later stages of this game. And if that's where the Holy Pact is strong, then what happens if the game starts going south early and you have that late game insurance in the 80 carry?
But here's the thing, Icarus, if the Holy Pack makes it to the end, there's no hope. The Paladins will come through. Do you see the Holy Pack in the back? They're all ready. They're looking for blood. And that guy in the middle, that can be everyone. That can be Gujin Fail Guy. That can be the Skiz. That can be Peekaboo. That can be any person. So I'm excited to see how the Holy Pack matches up. It's going to be an exciting show match, and it's going to be an exciting kind of rest of the games because a lot of these games are going to determine who makes it into playoff and who doesn't. We have that first seed kind of already locked up by CB Rush, but everything else is kind of up to be decided for. So I'm excited to see where we go next.
Oh,
What?
yeah,
Just
sorry.
waiting on Cam to do predictions here.
I thought we were going to a break after that. I'm sorry. Okay,
Dungeon Master, you're not
Fever.
getting out of this free.
I looked over at the stream and I saw that my face was covered up by Icarus's beautiful drawing, and I was wondering where I'd gone. So I was just rolling with it here. So Fever and No Fear Wolves, I'm definitely expecting it to be a 1-2. I'm not sure which way it's going to particularly go. If I had to choose, I would actually lean towards Fever being that 2-1 here. So, but again, it's really going to come down to who plays it better today, especially since Fever is coming off of a much harder matchup from last week against CB Rush. Like you're saying, I'm hoping that they did have some good VOD review sessions. I'm hoping that they did take some nice lessons from last week, and then hopefully going against No Fear Wolves, which by no means is definitely not out of the running for being one of the top teams. It's definitely going to be a nice harder 2 weeks for Fever here. So I am definitely going to be going towards Fever.
I feel like that was very non-committal, Cam, but that's okay. As the Dungeon Master, I think we're all okay with that. And with that, our D&D inspired League and Legends pre-show ends. MacDo and Icarus, good luck on the cast. We're excited to see how you guys break down this series. But the Dungeon Master and I will be transitioning over to the analyst desk. We're going to break down a little bit about patch 11.13, this holy patch that I've talked about, what the holy pack needs to make it into that second seed. Cam, how do you feel about 11.13, and what are your big takeaways about what's going to be strong, what's going to be not?